Hello, and welcome to Why Am I Like This? The podcast for those who didn't get enough hugs as a child. I'm Laura Wood, and I'm a trauma therapist.
And I'm Mishayla Beaver. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
So, Mishayla, why are we doing this podcast?
I'm so glad you asked. We want to help you understand yourself a bit better, how the things you learned about yourself and the world in childhood are still affecting you today. We want to figure out, why are we like this? Those random things about ourselves that we might wonder about, like, why am I so jumpy? Why am I so anxious? Why do I take everything personally? Why are my thoughts so negative? Why do I feel like I have to fix everything all the time?
Ugh, yes. And today we're talking about hard things and how they shaped us. We're going to try to answer the following questions. How did the past experiences affect us then? How could they be still affecting us today? And what can we do about it? So let's get started. What do you think about past experiences and how they kind of have a big impact on us?
Yeah, as I was thinking about like this podcast and thinking about like what would I want to talk about? What would I think about for this? And I was thinking about like one thing I was thinking about was, how what we learn about experiences. So I was thinking about my third grade experience, and I don't think I've talked about this one on the podcast. So I had this teacher, and she called all of the students by like Princess 1, Princess 2, Princess 3, whatever. So we got numbers. And I was kind of like a shy, quiet kid or whatever. And her favorite student was this guy who was very like animated and loud and like very talkative and like just like the exact opposite of me. And so I was thinking about like what that taught me then was that like I wasn't good enough. Like there was something wrong with me that like I think I was like Princess 32 or something like that. Like,
No.
and so like that I think further like made me go into myself more than it did like help me be more like animated and like want to be like the other kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it didn't really like nurture any kind of learning or growth. It really just shaped, like you kind of shut down a little bit, maybe didn't want to change or didn't want to do anything differently because maybe you were afraid.
Yeah, I think I was. I think that like, as a kid, we look at like who we're like, what we're like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we think about like, I'm not like the kid that she liked. I'm different than that. So there must be something wrong with me. And I think that like, when I think about the nervous system response that probably caused was a lot of freeze, right? Like fight or flight, shutdown, freeze response. And so I think that like that just taught my nervous system what to do when I just didn't feel like I was comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anytime we have those hard experiences, our nervous system, it creates like a mark on our nervous system. Like our survival response is to optimize like our capacity to survive in that moment. And we're going to do what we feel like we need to do in order to get through it with as minimal injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's too much of a risk to make a change or like to put yourself out there, like to feel vulnerable, that's not going to work. So we shift to the other way, and then our parasympathetic nervous system kind of takes over and like slows us way down and puts us into like a shutdown. Or, our sympathetic nervous system could activate and put us into a freeze, which is where we're just like frozen in fear or frozen in like frozen in feeling like nothing that we do is going to work or nothing that we do is going to be good enough. Like we don't have, like we're feeling helpless.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
then
I tried my best and my best wasn't good enough. And so therefore I have to conserve energy. Like I have to just survive.
Yeah. And what's interesting is these marks on our nervous system, like they stay with us forever. Mm-hmm. Like they create almost like a template of a response that then gets inserted into other scenarios that are similar.
Yeah.
So our body will keep using that same response over and over and over. Like, I don't remember a lot of my childhood experiences, but like when I do, they're like those visceral memories, right? Where they're really powerful, like vivid memories. And it's like, it teaches you something, right? Like what you said, you were learning in that moment, like, I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. A lot of the time, these hard experiences create a negative narrative about ourselves in our head, where we think like, I can't do it, or I'm not good enough. I'm broken, or I'm bad, or I'm different.
Well, and I think that like too, I think that like in this experience, I'm like, okay, I could totally see like people pleasing being a response to, you know, like trying to overcome not feeling like we're good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just always trying to make everybody else happy so that, you know, we don't rock the boat, or like, you know, just or like hiding, right? So I think of like, you know, imposter syndrome in
Mm-hmm.
this scenario, right? So like when I still think I know that this is a thing that I feel, but I know that especially like when I was not quite in NP yet and I was still learning and I was working in the emergency room, I think I felt a lot of that. And so like, you know, the doctors were so kind and they were so helpful and they were trying to like help me learn and help me grow, but I think that like that's a moment where I felt that freeze came back, where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. Like they're going to judge me and I'm going to fail. And so it would create a similar response. And so, you know, I felt like even though I knew a lot of answers or whatever, I was like, oh, I'm going to do something wrong. I'm not going to give the right answer. Like I'm a fraud. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we have that feeling, it really hijacks us and like takes away our perspective from the bigger picture. Like it makes it so like we zoom in so much to the fear that we really can't zoom out and see that like we're just one person out of 30 students or whatever. And, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Like it's not the end of the world if we make a mistake, or if somebody like judges us even, or you know, but we can't zoom out and we can't see that big picture of like the whole thing, and the you know, more important things about it. Like I'm going through this experience and I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm
and I don't have to have all the answers.
That's right. That's like with a growth mindset, we don't already know everything. When we have a growth mindset, we realize that we're in the process. Realize that we're not experts yet, and we're open to learning from our experiences. And when we have an experience that teaches us something, we take the teaching versus the failing. Like we focus on the learning versus focusing on the mistake. And that's with a growth mindset. But sometimes in those moments when we feel small, or when we feel like our nervous system is kind of hijacking us, it's so hard to see that growth mindset in that moment. Everything just feels too big, and everything just feels like we're this like spotlight is on us, and everybody's going to notice every single flaw that we possibly have.
Well, and I think, you know, I think back to like the third grade experience, like in the home setting, you look like you're completely normal because you're in a comfortable place that's safe, right? And it's not that I didn't like tell my parents what was going on, it's that they didn't know how much it was affecting me. I didn't know it wasn't normal. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't know that this was a thing that was like not how everybody else felt. Cause I was 8. Right. And I was like, I started school on the young end. So like I was probably like one of the youngest kids in the class. So
Mm-hmm.
there's all these kids that have a lot more, you know, almost a year ahead of me in their knowledge and their growth. So I was always probably trying to play catch up with them developmentally. No, I didn't know that though as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? As a kid, you don't really think about those things. And so, you know, I think that, I think about how like I asked for help. I told my parents what happened, but nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so how could that have affected my nervous system, right? Like I'm alone. There's nothing I can do to fix this.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to save me, right? Nobody has any answers for me, right? I'm on my own.
Yeah. And that feeling of being on your own when you're a kid is so big. It's insurmountable, right? We can't make it on our own. We need support and help, but we also don't necessarily know how to communicate what we need or like really dig into like what the problems are. And then also sometimes when kids have problems, like adults in our lives like just kind of say like, okay, that's not that big of a deal, like you'll be fine, or it's no big deal. But when we're not getting that attunement to like the concern, and nobody's really saying like, I really understand where you're coming from, and I really feel like this is big for you, like I can tell that you're really upset, kind of connecting with that and attuning to that, like any experience that you have with the adult in your life, when the adult is not I don't know, connecting and attuning, then we're in a position where our nervous system is going to respond to that, like that we're alone and that we don't have the support that we need.
Yeah.
And we're going to feel helpless.
Right. But also like my adult brain now looking back at that situation, I'm like, that was dumb. Who cares? Right. Like
Mhm.
why did that, like, so I think that like an adult looking into this, and this is one of the things that you can take away from this is that like as an adult, when your kid comes to you with a problem, just because you don't think it's a big problem doesn't mean that it's not a big problem for them.
Mhm. Yeah, we have to have empathy for our kids. And it's hard to have empathy for kids because everything is so big. Like kids can be dramatic, right? They can they can make mountains out of molehills, and we don't want to feed into that like overly dramatic like response. We don't want to like make everything a big deal, but I think sometimes just simply acknowledging and saying like, hey, I see you, this is really hard for you, it's really hard for you to make this change, it's really hard for you to go through this class, it's really hard for you, like kind of reflecting back on what they're going through, like you're going through a hard time and I get that, and I'm here for you, can go a long way.
Yeah. Well, and I think that helping them to understand like, hey, right now you think that this means something about you, and then helping them come up with like why it doesn't, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it makes you feel like you're not good enough, but maybe like, are there some ways that you think that maybe you are good enough, right? And like highlighting the positive things and helping them come up with the answers on their own so that they can kind of realize, oh, okay, maybe these thoughts aren't true.
Mm-hmm. And in trauma therapy, we work to change that negative cognition to a positive one or a neutral one. And so sometimes the answer isn't positive, the answer is just neutral. Like maybe this doesn't mean anything about you. Maybe this story isn't about you at all. It's about this teacher who is, not necessarily making the best decisions for how she addresses her class. And is not really taking a nurturing posture.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think this has to mean something about us, but the reality is it doesn't mean anything about us. It means everything about the other person.
Yeah, like maybe this lady didn't remember people's names. And so she had to come up with another way to not, call people the wrong name or something.
Yeah, that's probably a thing. Like if I'm a teacher and I have 30 something kids, I'm supposed to remember all their names. Like that's hard to do. So then I can just like create this numbering system that makes it make sense. So it's really just about her effort to like manage that situation for herself. And that's really what we're all doing all the time is we are managing our own situation and we're managing our own distress. And however we're doing that can sometimes affect other people.
Can. I like that. I think that it's important to know that like though we're responsible for our own emotional responses to things, people can affect our emotions, but it's
Mhm.
our job to really work on managing that response and working through how that's affecting us. The other thing that I wanted to say is like, it's not about the experience of whatever it was that we went through or we're going through, even now today, but especially as children, as our brains are developing and we're like learning about the world and ourselves and trying to understand things better. It's really about the nervous system response, right? So like, we talk a lot about like going into the stress response and then, going into the trauma response in these situations, right? And so if we feel like there's nothing we can do and we're helpless, that's more likely going to start the trauma response, and it's going to become something that gets a little bit stuck for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then that response will kick back up in similar situations down the road. So like these things affect us in that moment by creating a narrative and creating this like template of a response that we're going to then use later on. And so as we think about how those emotional experiences affect us in our later life, like think about, maybe when you see people, when somebody, maybe like, I don't know if this is true for you, but like if somebody calls you princess, like you're like, ugh, like I don't like that. Right? Like I don't like being called princess. I don't like being given like a pet name or something, right? Because you have this like response to it where it was this negative thing for you. And so your nervous system is like, oh no, something about that is bad. I don't necessarily know what about it is bad, but it's bad and we don't like it and it's not good for us. And
I
so
guess
like you're going to reject that idea in the future, right? Like I sometimes tell the restaurant story of, where this fictional kid gets left behind at the restaurant after the mom and dad like pack all the kids in the car. And then, maybe she gets out and goes in because she forgot her stuffed animal, and she gets out and goes in the restaurant, and the parents like don't realize and they start to drive away. Now, even if that experience only lasts like 30 seconds, in that moment, that kid is feeling like they're being left behind by their parents. And so they might notice, so their nervous system is going to take a snapshot of everything in the restaurant because all of that stuff now is going to signal danger, right? Like the red chairs or the smell of French fries or, the hamburgers or whatever, right? So we're going to take a snapshot of everything we see, we feel, we taste, we smell. We're using our senses to take that information in. And then our nervous
it's like
system is
kind of fuzzy too, right? Like it's
yeah.
not clear because all that cortisol is kind of messing with our ability to take that perfectly clear picture. So like now all of a sudden a red chair is all that we like kind of see, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's like taking these individual things that aren't really connected and related to each other in any way. And then it's like saying, this is possibly dangerous because I don't know what part of this made us get left behind, but something did. Was it the way we were acting? Was it the restaurant itself? Was it the smell? Like, I don't know. But what's going to happen now is my memory is going to get activated when I see those similar things. And I'm not going to know why, because this experience really only lasted 30 seconds and I wasn't in any danger and it was fine. But I don't know that because I'm a baby. Like when I'm a little kid at the time, like just feeling afraid, I don't know that they're coming back. I don't know that, it wasn't my fault that happened or whatever, but I might create this like negative, this negative thought loop about like what happened in that moment and that it was my fault or that something I was bad or they didn't want me or something like that. And then those things can come back and get me later on when like I walk into a restaurant and I feel and I smell those similar things and I see those similar things. I might just get anxious, right? And I might just like have a panic attack for seemingly no reason. But it's really my nervous system saying, hey, this is dangerous. Like this is a really bad situation that you're in right now.
Right. You might get left.
Yeah.
You might be abandoned.
You might be abandoned. And that's so scary that our nervous system will just like have this response and it's not taking in the other data. It's not taking in that bigger picture. Like we talked about, the big picture that says like, this is just a restaurant and it's not dangerous. the big picture that says like that was a one-time thing because of this other circumstance and it's not related to what's happening now. Like I often say to clients, like, this isn't that, right? Like this is not that one time, this is a different time and there's different circumstances, and it's not, it's not dangerous. Just because you were in danger that one time doesn't mean that every single time you encounter these things that it's dangerous. And we have to kind of retrain our nervous system a little bit. We have to introduce that new information, that adaptive, helpful information that says, I am not in any danger. I am capable of taking care of myself. I'm capable of finding help if I need it. There's nothing wrong with me. Like those adaptive, helpful pieces of information.
Yeah.
We can retrain our nervous system with those.
And that's the ultimate goal, right? But by the time they're actually reaching you in therapy, they have encountered the same scenario multiple times, and that pathway is pretty strong. So it takes time and effort to rewire things and calm that pathway down so that your body can go, oh, wait, maybe I don't need to tell you that this is dangerous anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes rewriting. Like sometimes I use like a cell phone analogy, right? Like when our apps, like, the apps on your phone like need an update, so they get kind of glitchy or whatever, right? Like, so if we don't update, so we have to go in and manually like click update this app in order to kind of rewrite that narrative and reprogram that particular content in our brain. Like if our brain is like a bunch of neural networks and they're all just these apps, sometimes we find that one that hasn't been updated in a while, and we have to go in and really like program it and do that on purpose, and give it new information and give it access to the present day, right? The data collection from the present day, like connect it to the internet, get it online. Sometimes we say like, we need to bring our prefrontal cortex back online in order to give the rest of our neural networks access to the present day information.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And, grounding is a really good way of getting people to help them getting back into letting that nervous system calm down, getting our prefrontal cortex back online, and reminding ourselves that like, hey, I'm a 39-year-old woman. I live in this address. I'm not that, 8-year-old version of myself anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not every single grounding tool works for every single person too. Like, I think that's important to note, is that like, there's a billion different ways that we can ground ourselves, but not all of them are going to work for you. So every person really needs to think about what means safety to them and like what helps them feel competent and capable and powerful. Like for me, I like using my age because it reminds me that I'm an adult and I'm not a kid. That's helpful for me. That might not be helpful for everyone, right? I like to use things in the room because it makes the room, it kind of like zooms me out a little bit instead of like having this like myopic lens of just the fear. And in my head, I like to kind of get out of my head and get into the room and like look for shapes in the room that kind of distract me a little bit and kind of get me more centered. Those work for me, but that doesn't mean it works for everybody. So it's important to practice lots of skills. Like you can go online and download a list of 100 grounding skills. And there's tons of them out there. And we just have to find the ones that work for us.
That's good advice for sure.
And when we, start to use them, they don't always work the first time either.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone said to me recently, like, oh, that doesn't work for me. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, oh, that doesn't work for me. I was like, well, why not? What happens? And she was saying, well, as soon as I'm done with the grounding skill, like my fear comes back or my feelings come back. Like, I'm like, okay, then you do it again. And so it's like, it's not that it's not working. It's just that it doesn't last that long initially, right? Because we're in that state like of hyperarousal. We haven't trained our body to kind of get used to and settle into the calm. Because a lot of the time we are so amped up, if we've had a lot of really hard things in our life and we've had to do really hard things kind of over and over and over and chronically and consistently, our body hasn't really learned how to be calm. It doesn't know what that looks like. It doesn't know how to feel that in a safe way.
Yeah. And so then it's going to take a little bit more work to not only ground, but also and calm our nervous system, but also to recognize that like being calm is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because being anxious is what your brain is trying to tell you. If we worry about everything that's out there, if we keep worrying about stuff, then that's what's going to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't true, right? We can logically know that, like, if I worry about getting into a car accident, it's not going to actually prevent me from getting into a car accident. What prevents me is planning and preparing and paying attention while I'm driving, right?
Right.
These are helpful things, but worrying about if it's going to happen, that does nothing good for me. But our brain, a part of our brain thinks that it's going to be really helpful if we just worry about every scenario. And so then that becomes our baseline where we think that we're safe if we're doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we can learn how to be calm and we can calm our nervous system, that's what actually is safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think my dog's whining. I'm so sorry. So I think when we actually learn how to be in the calm and realize that me being calm isn't going to create like danger, right? So for example, some people believe that if I relax, then I'll be blindsided by what comes up, right? So we have to be hyper vigilant. Like, well, if I relax, then it'll be worse because something will come up and I won't be prepared. But really the opposite is true. When we relax and when we are, our most calm self, then we have access to more of that prefrontal cortex, that executive functioning that's telling us how to navigate a situation in an effective way. We can use our experience and our knowledge in the most effective way when we're grounded and calm versus when we're hypervigilant. And, hypervigilance is really, we're just focused on one thing that could possibly happen versus seeing that big picture and zooming out and being able to like prepare for many scenarios that life has to bring, right? The world is a dynamic place. It's not just we're not more likely to experience the thing that we're hypervigilant about than we are to experience all these other things that we need to have our brain online to sort of deal with at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So what else could we do to help ourselves manage like the things that, we went through as a kid on our day-to-day tasks? Like,
I think like we need to change the narrative. We need to maybe retell ourselves the story of like what that meant about us in that moment. So if we can challenge that narrative and then bring in that adaptive perspective of this wasn't about you, this is about them, or this was just a freak accident. Like sometimes accidents they just happen. They don't happen for, because of you, or it's not something that you caused. Like, so rewriting that narrative about like, it's not about me. This isn't my doing. We're not that powerful, right? Like we can kind of take ourselves out of it. And that can really help us tell our nervous system like, oh, okay, well, if it's not about me, then I don't have to control it.
yeah.
Like, I think we want to control everything all the time.
Well, I think it also comes back to like the literal phobia of feeling anxious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those past experiences, whether we recognize it or not yet, right? Those past experiences are affecting the way that our nervous system responds to things. But in the moment, like you said, what we focus on is our experience of the situation. So like our heart is racing, we get sweaty, we get hot, we get flushed, where we feel embarrassed that people can see that we feel that way.
Mhm.
And so we want to escape because of that feeling, right? We
Mhm.
don't like how it feels. We know it doesn't feel right. And so then we just want to like get away from that, or we want to avoid feeling that way.
Mhm. I think accepting that we have these negative experiences sometimes is also important. Like trying to prevent me from ever being triggered, or like trying to prevent like ever experiencing anxiety or like distress, like that's just not realistic. I will experience this anxiety. I will experience embarrassment. I will experience negative emotions. Like that is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I need to be okay with that. I need to be okay knowing that like these emotions are going to come and I can handle them.
I think that's the big thing. I think that like anxiety steals that from us. We have a catastrophic thought, right? Like the
Mhm.
worst thing possible is going to happen. And then I'm not capable of managing it. And that's what's stealing from us our ability to say, like, okay, well, even if that happens, I can handle it, right? Like I can manage it because I've done hard things. And I think that that's a really big piece of like being able to push through some of those fears about feeling anxious or feeling dumb or feeling whatever it is that you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think sometimes, so I share with people like to invite the anxiety to just like sit next to you. Like invite the stuff, like let it exist, let it be there. And don't try to like control it or push it or like banish it or eliminate it, because it's just going to grow.
Right. What we
When we,
resist persists.
that's right. What we resist persists. I love that.
But I think too, like I like that, and I sometimes tell clients like, "Hey, thank you, anxiety, like that your body is doing its job." But you always say feelings aren't facts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, thank you for being there and warning me. But there's nothing dangerous here, so you can calm down. And it over time, as you can just accept the feeling of being anxious or whatever it is, that you can just go, you're unenforcing that pathway
Mm-hmm.
from being activated. And so then your brain isn't like, okay, I need to remind you of this 500 times today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we are in that thought loop of I need to think about this over and over and over until it gets done, like there's lots of different ways to cope with that. One, we can write stuff down and kind of get it out of our brain. Two, we can check in with ourselves and just be like, hey, okay, like almost have a conversation with that anxiety. Like, okay, so you're telling me I need to do this. Will I get this done? Yes. Like, what is my plan to get this done? What is my experience that, what am I experiencing? Is it fear? Is it fear of failure? Right? Like, so kind of just having that conversation with yourself, like what's really going on here? And what do I need in order to make sure that I can effectively manage this situation? Sometimes it's not that the problem needs to be solved right in that moment. Sometimes the problem can't be solved right in that moment. And it's just about having some reflection and really just introspection, trying to understand where that's coming from and trying to reinforce the plan, right? Let yourself know, like, I will be able to manage this. Like, I'm going to do this at this time. I'm going to take care of this, when I get to the office or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that sounds like maybe, a story from a kid who maybe didn't get their stuff done, or there was a time where there was a negative consequence for not getting things done. And so now we have to overthink, okay, did I get this done? We were just talking this morning that we had a relaxing weekend. It was a long weekend, and there were things that we, needed to get done. And you have that like panic, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I need to get this done. And it's like, that's a good thing. It is there to help you, tell you that this is important. This is important. It needs to get done. That
Yeah.
anxiety is driving you. And so it's a good thing as long as you don't let it become like you use it for the good and not let it just paralyze you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like that's what I was just thinking about is like, I woke up at 3:00 in the morning thinking, oh my gosh, I have to take care of these 3 tasks or whatever. And then I'm like, it's 3 a.m. Why am I thinking about like, this is my thought process last night or this morning. I thought I don't need to take care of this right now. I will be able to do this today during the day, like after I wake up and I have time. So I ran through my schedule. I was like, okay, what's my schedule tomorrow? I have this. Do I have time to get this done? Yes. Will I make sure that I take care of it? Yes. Is it on my to-do list? Yes. Done. And then and then I can say, thanks, anxiety, for bringing it up. We've got a plan. I can move forward now.
Yeah.
And I can let go of those thoughts.
And that's a healthy way of managing it. So we can't stop the stressor from happening. We can't stop the fact that we're out of our normal routine.
Right. There was nothing I could do to prevent myself from waking up at 3 a.m. thinking about these tasks. That's not the problem.
Right. The problem is being able to plan, prepare, let it go, and go back to sleep.
Yeah. Which is what I did. And it worked out great.
I love that for you.
And then I took care of my tasks this morning and everything's good. They're all done.
See, we can do hard things.
We can do really hard things. I think that is just the perfect place to end it today too. And thank you so much for this conversation and all of this good advice. I really think that it's important that we all zoom out a little bit from time to time and let go of some of those old templates that are no longer serving us. And thank you so much for listening to Why Am I Like This? If you like our show, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Follow the show and share it with your friends. This episode was written and produced by me, Laura Wood, and Mishayla Bieber. Our theme song is Making Ends Meet by Thick as Thieves. And a special thanks to Core Self, Beneberry Counseling and Active Healing Psychiatric Services for sponsoring this show.